So my name is Nils. I'm a chair of a property developer that works with houses based on a 10-year process of local social mobilization. So we're based in Röstånga, which is a small community in a small municipality about 1 hour away from Malmö. So what we're tackling and the way we started organizing in the first place was actually finding new ways of rural challenges. Depopulation, lack of service or decline in service, still having a great life quality, a good life and an affordable way of life because it's cheap houses, but still tackling with some classical rural problems. So in order to face them and not only to turn into this coulis for tourists, we had to find new ways of addressing some of these challenges, and it all started off as a great social mobilization with a momentum about the school closing. So this is very important because our experience is this social mobilization created the trust and the cohesion in the community to work with some maybe harder issues as properties and housing and commercial business. So we could easily see in the rural context it gets quite obvious when the system or the way we organize things doesn't work. And this means that there is no private investment in housing. For example, we have not yet have had house built for the last 30 years because there's no incitament, there's no drive for a private investor to invest because you don't make money on it. So after this social mobilization for a couple of years, we've done some projects, we were building trust within the community, finding new ways of collaborating about certain issues, building a bicycle path, buying a common bus, a community bus that we owned by ourselves, creating networks and trust between stakeholders, the municipality, the private local business, tourist organizations, citizens, schools, etc., and trying to make these work in a great way. We also found that the core issue in this is actually property and housing. As no one else is investing, and we're asking people to invest in our local community and no one is investing it, how can we ask for someone else to invest if we don't do it ourselves? So we started a housing company, a property developing company, owned by the community, and today we own 7 properties. We're about 425 co-owners, shareholders, so it's a shareholding company in a village of 900 people. So almost half of the village is financially owning a share. And this made it possible to invest in these houses over time. So this is the last 6 years. So we now have the smallest museum of modern arts that we own. We also have an old train station, which is a restaurant. We have a local brewery, and we also rent out some facilities to a folk high school. So we got some commercial property, and then we also got, today we got 6 flats. And our business model is trying to use the social mobilization to create a financial mobilization, but where they both work for the community best. For our housing company, it's not important to have a 15% revenue. We don't even have a revenue. So every profit we make, of course we have to make profit as everything to make it sustainable, but we reinvest in doing some really bad investments. So our business model is buying some really, really bad investment, but creating a very good, no revenue financially, but we'll have a great social outcome, enhanced life quality. We're getting these houses from being empty and declined, having maybe 2 flats and families living there. So we're also tackling the idea of depopulation and like slumlords, etc. And this is a quite innovative way of creating a sustainable, inclusive community, and also acknowledging the social capital and the social resources that's in the community. So, for example, many of these houses we invested at the same time as we had the refugee crisis rolling in our country. And we had 2 big asylum centers in our small community. We had about 300 asylum seekers who in Sweden wait maybe 18 to 24 months to get a permit to stay. And we found there, we got some really, really gifted craftsmen from Syria, Aleppo and Damascus and elsewhere. Carpenters, painters. So we engaged doing a pilot where we engaged the people to use their skills together with the local volunteers and the craftsmen, and then setting these houses in order to be rented out. So this has been a very successful process in using and mobilizing the resources locally, acknowledging everyone's part in the society. If you've been staying there for 10 generations or 10 months or 10 days, it doesn't matter. If you live in the city temporarily or permanently or forever and you want to contribute, how do we find ways of making that happen? And this, of course, there's a sustainable business model out of if you have a whole perspective, not only a financial perspective, but if you're looking at a community life as a whole with all its aspects, it gets more sustainable. There's an issue at the moment looking for how can you use social cohesion as a tool for development, for local development. In Sweden or in Scandinavia or maybe in the Western world in general, we're really good at building houses and roads. This is what we do. We got some award-winning housing. But how do you create a community? How do you create a sense of belonging? How do you create that cohesion? And how can that be used in a way to welcome people or to welcome life or make it more resilient and inclusive? And these are very, very processes that are very, very hard to define. They're very, very hard to design. Could you even design it? And they're very delicate and vulnerable and can easily be erased if people do it for the wrong reason or if people don't have the built-in trust between stakeholders, individuals, NGOs, other stakeholders, property developers. So a lot of people come to us and ask, how can we design, can we build in that social cohesion and how can it be used? And we're showing that it can be used. And I also think it can be used, but we have to challenge mostly the way we organize owning. Because this is actually co-owning in many ways. And the sense of not only feeling ownership or imaginary ownership, psychologically, it's also physical ownership. There's also full transparency to creating that trust. There's also an openness for everyone to be with there. I think absolutely you can and should find new ways of organizing a community, local, a city, or we never really talk about rural and urban. We talk about local development because we're all the same people there. We got the same needs, the same desires to be a part of something and to contribute instead of just being consumers. But the way we've organized it over the years kind of distanced us from that, and we have to reclaim and regain this way of feeling as a community member, and we've been quite successful in creating that. And once you get that, you also can face challenges as, a refugee crisis. But it cannot only be social, it also has to be financial, and it could be structured. So there's the same mechanisms in every community. In many ways, we accept the way we organize things as being nature laws like this. If the market doesn't, there's nothing we can do. Or if the municipality doesn't work, or the public sector doesn't do it, or if us as volunteers. We're really, really poor in challenging ourselves, in thinking innovative to address some challenges, some social challenges. And so what's interesting here is actually finding these hybrid ways of thinking, finding that they work, and sometimes they also fail or doesn't work as good as we hoped to, but we need to challenge the idea of how things are organized and run. It could be rewritten. What is our role as citizens? What's our role as organizations? What's our role as business? This should be challenged because the way it's organized now does not solve some of the core issues: inclusiveness, poverty, the gap in wealth. And what's good in a small context, as we work in this small village, is that in many ways it works as a living lab where you can test out models of participation, models of financing, models of owning, models of management in a quite clear way. It gets like a lab situation where you can actually add and you can quite easily see what works and doesn't work. Communication, for example. It's a really good seedbed for testing things, and this is what drives us, because we need to find these alternatives to create a more sustainable way of being citizens or building communities and in many ways.